I'm Maria Drutska, and today I will tell you why ISIS is shocked that they have to prove the organization of a terrorist attack in Moscow. The terrorist state Russia wants a repeat of the ecological and humanitarian disaster in Ukraine. A Russian parliament deputy is calling for what is known in global practice as genocide. Russia continues to shoot down its own planes, and about whether the Ukrainian Armed Forces will have to retreat. Well, ISIS is shocked that they have to prove the organization of a terrorist attack in Crocus Concert Hall. It released an article stating that Russia does not recognize a failure in front of the Islamic State and tries to blame the West for the attack. Meanwhile, the Russian Investigative Committee is intensively checking whether Ukrainian special services are involved in the organization and financing of the attack in Crocus. And what do you think? They found a Ukrainian trace. Of course, if the detainees are subjected to cutting ears and applying other tortures, gouging out eyes and attaching electric shocks to the genitals, they will confess to anything. Russia claimed that the terrorists from Tajikistan supposedly went towards the super fortified zone of military operations of the border with Ukraine to break through and go straight to Kiev for a reward. Maybe they would also say that Budanov himself promised to issue them a certificate. I don't know. But before I continue, I want to thank all of you who send coffees on Buy Me a Coffee and become Patreons. Subscribe also to my Twitter page where I post regular updates about the situation in Ukraine, and to my Instagram where I show the daily life in Ukraine. The night before yesterday, conscious targets of Russia's massive missile launches on Ukraine were the Kharkiv and Dnipro hydropower plants. The terrorist state wants a repetition of the ecological disaster in the Kherson region. But not only Ukraine is at the risk, but also Moldova. The water will not stop at the border post, just as the Russian war will not stop if it is not stopped together and in time in Ukraine, noted President Zelensky. Well, apparently, the ecological and humanitarian disaster in Ukraine, which may soon occur, is of a little concern to the West. Because no one is talking about it now, and just as quickly it was hushed up when the Russians blew up the Kakhovka dam last year. So I don't know whether they actually think that the consequences will not reach them, or I don't know what it is.
The Kakhovka hydroelectric power plant, the last power plant in the Dnipro Cascade. On the first day of the full-scale war, the Russian troops seized it and mined it. On June 6, 2023, the Russians carried out a terrorist attack and blew up the dam. 11 out of 28 spans of the dam were destroyed, leaving it beyond repair. One of the 6 largest reservoirs in Ukraine, the Kakhovka Reservoir, ceased to exist.
A week ago, the Russians carried out the most massive attack on Ukraine's energy system, cynically striking the hydroelectric facilities of the Dnipro hydropower plants in Zaporizhia, with at least 8 hits. President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelensky stated that the delay in Congress approval of military aid to Ukraine negatively affected combat operations, as the military could not plan future operations. According to him, if Ukrainian troops continue not to receive the necessary weapons, the armed forces of Ukraine will have to retreat. In this way, the military who are in difficult conditions will be able to preserve the necessary ammunition, which is extremely scarce. If there is no support from the USA, it means that we do not have anti-aircraft defense systems, Patriot missiles, electronic warfare means, or 155mm artillery shells. It means that we will be moving back, retreating step by step, by small steps, said Zelensky in an interview with the Washington Post. Also, Zelensky emphasized that Ukraine urgently needs atacms 300 long-range missiles, not for strikes on Russian territory, but according to him, they can hit targets in Crimea occupied by Russia, especially airfields from which Russia launches aircraft with high-pressure missiles that cause serious damage. Recently, these missiles hit Odessa and several other targets. Well, this is probably almost the first time the president has said that Ukraine will soon not be ready to defend itself. But it's important to understand, especially in the West, that absence of financial, military and other assistance translates into the loss of Ukrainian lives. Essentially, the president is just stating the real situation as it is without threats, aggression, or insults. Then, essentially, those who delay providing the assistance also bear responsibility for the fact that the war continues at such a cost. That Putin is having some advantage and mobilizing resources, and he is even talking about taking Kharkiv and even Kiev again. In recent another interview, the President Zelensky mentioned that a new Russian offensive is expected at the end of May or in June. For example, on Russian state television, a bunch of Russian patriots gathered who shared their opinions on the advisability of eliminating Ukraine. They opened a call for cleansing of territory of Ukraine from its native inhabitants so that their homes can be settled by Russians, and they simply say that Ukrainian cities must be destroyed. Kharkiv should be deprived of power.
Ну, их надо поставить на место. Я думаю, Харьков надо обесточить до такой степени, чтобы он стал нежизнеспособным. Что вот эти 800 тысяч человек, которые там остались, сели в машины, пешком, с тюками, на повозках и назад. И то же самое сделать с другими городами, в том числе с Киевом.
On a lighter note, if you missed the news, the day before yesterday, what happened? Russia shot down its own Su-27 fighter over Crimea. At that time, there was an air raid siren in Crimea and combat readiness was high. The human factor played its part, and as a result, someone shot down their own plane. Someone was very eager to receive a medal for shooting down a plane and did not bother to find out whose plane it was. Well, the pilot who managed to eject was rescued by the occupiers. Well, I wish the Russians more medals for their own down planes. We might even send them by mail, unless, of course, they fall down on the first floor from the windows. Well, that's it for today. I thank all of you who support Ukraine, watching Ukrainian content, and if you like this video, you can support the channel's development on Buy Me a Coffee and Patreon. See you soon, and Slava Ukraini!